Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard, and thank you for watching today's Corn Belt Regional Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Checking in with the jet stream on this Tuesday morning, we've still got our ridge of high pressure over the western U.S., and we've still got an active storm track kind of going over the top of that through the Canadian prairies, through parts of the northern plains, and into the Great Lakes. And as we take this out into the first few days of August, we see a similar look. By the time we get to August 2nd, we've still got this ridge over the western United States. I've still got our active storm track through the Canadian prairies, and then we've still got northwesterly flow kind of bringing in this less humid air mass across the eastern Corn Belt, but keeping things quiet in that region as well. So you look at the snapshot look here, the temperature forecast for the next 10 days, your first 5 on the left and the 5 that follow that over on the right. Certainly seeing a cool bias here as we take the finish out the month of July and go into the first couple of days of August, and then seeing a cooler bias overall holding on into the first week of August. The precipitation forecast here, week 1, so this takes us into, again, the first few days of August, seeing a bullseye here or a higher quarter of precipitation, and we'll have to talk about this across parts of the Central Plains, but drier overall as you look at the corridors around that through parts of the upper Midwest, the Central Corn Belt, into the Eastern Corn Belt, So you look at the week 2 period. Now I've got some low confidence here. High confidence on the left, low confidence here on the right. With this shift towards a wetter pattern across a big chunk of the Corn Belt, we will see kind of a flattening of the jet stream overall, where we're losing the amplified ridge, and this could again lead us to a period here where we're able to get some storm systems tracking along and over the top of that ridge through the Corn Belt, but confidence is low, and so we're going to be focused more on the week 1 period in this video. As we look at the last 48 hours of precipitation, you can almost see the flow of the jet stream in here, looking at the flow over the ridge, and then we've got our little system tracking through the Corn Belt here over the last 24 to 48 hours, bringing rain to a chunk of the central and the eastern Corn Belt, anywhere from the Dakotas into Minnesota and Wisconsin, where we had some severe weather, a couple of tornadoes over the last 48 hours or so, even then down here into parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt, parts of Illinois and Indiana, which badly needed that rain getting it, but some folks who didn't, of course, we still had some holes in here. It was not a uniform coverage of precipitation by any stretch of the imagination. Looking at the last 14 days departure from normal, we're kind of missing some data here, unfortunately, but you do see that dry corridor through parts of Iowa and Illinois, kind of a drier corridor off towards the north as well, and then certainly quite dry across parts of the Central Plains. So you look at the radar over the last 48 hours or so, you're going to notice the storm system emerge out of the northern plains, begin to organize, and then drag a cold front across the region. And as it did so, we saw showers and storms developing along it, kind of flattening out here. But now as we wake up on Tuesday morning, we've got an area of showers and storms, a broken line of showers and storms from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf Coast along the frontal boundary. And this is going to continue to move off to the east, bringing showers and storms to the far eastern Corn Belt and then eventually the northeast region as we get into the next 24 to 48 hours. Still seeing this clockwise flow around this area of high pressure off to the west, bringing scattered showers and storms to parts of the northern plains here as we head through the next day or so. And then we'll talk about the feature that sets up right here in just a moment. I'm getting ahead of myself at this point. First, let's check in with the satellite picture, the infrared satellite picture. So we're looking at the cloud top temperatures here. There is your frontal boundary for some showers and storms in parts of the far eastern Corn Belt, parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Ohio. Here's our area of high pressure off to the west, and then we've got little disturbances kind of rotating up and over the top of that, bringing shower and storm chances to parts of the high plains and to the central plains. Here's a look at the surface map here on Tuesday morning. Once again, here is the frontal boundary that's bringing showers and storms to the far eastern Corn Belt, parts of the mid-south. Here's our area of high pressure off to the west, and little disturbances tracking along it, bringing shower and storm chances to parts of, again, the high plains, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and eventually near the Missouri border. So I brought up the precipitation forecast and the temperature forecast and put them side by side here from the high resolution NAM model because a lot of the focal points, a lot of the triggers here that are responsible for the showers and storms over the next couple of days show up really well with our temperature forecast here. And so let me show what I mean. Let's go ahead and play this. Let's step through time though. Let's bring it back to Tuesday, going through Tuesday afternoon. And what I really want to do is point out the setup here over the Central Plains, which becomes most obvious here as we get into Wednesday afternoon. Now here's what we've got. We've got this area of high pressure that's bringing in this cooler and less humid air mass to parts of the Great Lakes, parts of the eastern Corn Belt, and even parts of Minnesota and Iowa, the central Corn Belt, into parts of the upper Midwest. We've got clockwise flow around that area of high pressure with this obviously different air mass here, this cooler and less humid air mass. Meanwhile, we've still got very hot, very humid air mass, very unstable air mass off to the west, and it's the convergent line between these. We've got easterly flow pumping in this cooler, less humid air. Out here, we've got kind of southwesterly flow bringing in this warmer and more unstable air mass, and it's the dividing line between those, where as you get into the afternoon, the peak heating of the day, we start to see those showers and storms developing. Here it is now as we get into late Wednesday, early Thursday, seeing those storms developing here along the kind of the Missouri River here near the border of Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, tracking off to the south. And again, you can see that really well. Look over towards the right. You see the temperatures in the hundreds here, and then we've got this cooler, less humid air mass off to the right, and it's right on that dividing line that we see the boundary, the focal point, and the rising motion. We get the different air masses here, the convergent winds, and that leads to rising air, and that leads to our bubbling cumulus, and eventually our showers and storms. So the total accumulated precipitation, you're going to see the frontal boundary making its way off to the east out here, and then what we start to see in the Central Plains is this area of convergence, again, flow from the southwest, meeting with flow from the northeast, hot and humid, cool and dry, and that leads to our area of showers and storms over the Central Plains. Another way we can look at this, looking at vorticity, areas of spin within the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and it's in advance of these areas of spin that we look for rising motion and the chance for storms. You can actually watch this little pocket of vorticity rotating up and around this area of high pressure off to the west and then into the Central Plains. And let's go ahead and we'll track it. Here we see it rotating up and over the top here. You see the kind of little pockets of red colors are pockets of higher vorticity. And then we can actually trace this as we play it out, getting into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, watching it kind of rotating over the top of that, and then eventually showing itself the door over the Gulf Coast. So just kind of cool. I'll play it now, where you can kind of watch it follow that trajectory, that area of higher vorticity, again, rotating up and over the top of the ridge. And then underneath that, we've got the warm and humid air mass meeting with the cooler and less humid air mass, and that's where we get our region of showers and storms setting up. Beyond that, we continue to see the ridge kind of holding on with disturbances going up and over the top of that. By the time we get to the end of next week, let me take my drawings off, and we'll go ahead and we'll click through time with this one as well. Let's bring it back to Tuesday. So taking it through the weekend, our ridge kind of resumes. Northerly flow over the eastern Corn Belt, or at least northwesterly flow, keeping us cooler and less humid. And then we watch these storm tracks, this active storm track over the top of the ridge. And this one's going to help kind of reinforce the troughing over the eastern United States. So this one, it comes up over the top. We get kind of a reinforcing vortice kind of going around over the, rotating around the bottom of that. And then here, watch, it comes crashing down into the Great Lakes, into the eastern U.S. We've got this broad trough now. Now we're way out there. We're in the 8 to 9 to 10 day time frame, which is where we've got kind of lower confidence. But what this would do was kind of keep not necessarily a cold pattern over the eastern Corn Belt by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't allow the ridge, which is now over here over the western U.S., to really take hold over the Corn Belt as a whole. So we're going to see warmer temperatures as you head towards the west, but across the eastern Corn Belt, parts of the Great Lakes, that's what keeps us from really building into a hot and humid pattern, kind of keeps it more mild, keeps the humidity a bit lower as we go through the next 7 days. It also keeps us a bit drier. We'll play the precipitation forecast here. Here's the frontal boundary making its way through now. We'll go ahead and play this out, and that's what you're going to, when you focus on the eastern Corn Belt, you're going to see that that's about it until we get to mid to late next week. So let's just play it now. We'll play it quickly. You see the feature over the Central Plains make its way out of the area, and then you see a frontal boundary sink through mid to late next week. And let's go through slowly now. Here's our frontal boundary. It makes its way out of the region by the end of the day today. As we head into the middle part of the week, now we're into Thursday and Friday, and we're watching this convergent region here. Remember, there's showers and storms here with this feature, making their way slowly through parts of the Central Plains. And as we get into, we're in the weekend now, so this slowly makes its way out here Thursday, Friday. By the time we get to Saturday and then Sunday, this is out of the Corn Belt. By the time we get into Monday and Tuesday now, potentially watching for our next storm system to bring a cold front through the region, bringing another shot of cooler and less humid air and another shot for some showers and storms across parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt. Here it is now Wednesday morning. I don't want to get too specific because confidence is rather low on the exact trajectory, but what I really want you to notice is a big chunk here from maybe Minnesota and Iowa through the eastern Corn Belt. After this front gets through here, this is about it until we get to next week. So very dry in that corridor. across Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio as we go through the next 7 days. Very dry. Really just looking out towards this potential next frontal boundary mid next week. Otherwise, not really any significant precipitation to talk about as we head through the rest of this week and into the weekend beyond that. Total accumulated precipitation forecast. Again, you can watch this first frontal boundary make its way out of the area. You can watch the higher precipitation bullseye here across the Central Plains. And you can watch this drier pattern overall in this region. Let's go ahead and play it out, see if my drawing is right here going from memory. And it does a pretty good job. If we go ahead and pause this, we'll go ahead and bring it back out, stopping it before next week's potential frontal boundary makes its way through. And so total precipitation through Sunday, so all the way through the rest of this week into the weekend, this corridor right here remaining very dry. Now remember, this stuff you're seeing right here, that all falls here Tuesday and Wednesday. So from the Dakotas into Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, a chunk of Missouri, quite dry over the next 7 days or so. Now the exact corridor of this precipitation, we've got some differences here when we look at the European model on the right, or on the left, the GFS over here on the right. Now the American models here, the GFS and our shorter term, the NAM model, kind of wanted to keep this precipitation a little bit further towards the Missouri side. So it looks like the border here, along the Missouri River, parts of the Nebraska-Iowa border, Kansas-Missouri border, certainly looking more like a lock to get some precipitation out of here. But parts of eastern Kansas, I would get, use some caution before getting too excited about some of these higher precipitation values right in this area, because it does look like maybe we've seen a trend toward pushing this slightly towards the east. But it certainly looks like a narrow corridor in this area, perhaps going to get some significant precipitation. One last way that I found kind of cool to visualize this, we're looking at precipitable water, and I show this sometimes just to give an idea of the moisture content within the atmosphere. And you're going to watch the flow bringing a humid, unstable air mass in across the high plains. Then you're going to watch this shot of dry air coming in from the east, and it's right on that dividing line where we see the shower and storms develop. So go ahead and watch right along that line, boom, as we get into mid-late next week. I'm gonna go ahead and we'll just kind of flip back and forth through this time period. So let's get it in here to that zone right here towards the late part of the week, and that's where you see it, that drier air mass pushing in from the east with a very humid, very moisture-laden air mass. Look at all the moisture content here, very high ends of the scale here across the Central Plains, and that's what brings that corridor of more significant precipitation across this area mid to late this week. Severe weather not a big concern as we head through the rest of the week, really, but the next 3 days here, we've got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on the screen, a marginal risk for some strong storms across parts of the northern high plains today and tomorrow, but that just about does it for severe weather across the lower 48 for the next 72 hours. We'll finish with a look at the high temperature forecast. Obviously, this big area of high pressure coming in, a big surface high behind that cold front, bringing temperatures in the low to mid 70s for our highs for the day on Tuesday. Wednesday, you can slowly watch this kind of slowly drift off to the east, watching heat rebuild across the high plains. Your Thursday high temperatures, let's see, where are we going? My map froze. Bummer. Let's see. Let me go ahead and we'll see if we can get this to unfreeze. There we go. All right, sorry about that, but thank you for hanging with me. Thursday high temperatures, Friday, still holding on to a certainly it's not cold, but it's a mild and it's a less humid air mass over this region, hanging on still into the weekend. Again, with that flow around the jet stream, it doesn't allow a really hot and humid air mass to build into the region, keeping us mild and less humid over the next week or so. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the evolution of the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Thursday morning ag forecast video. I'll be back with your next Corn Belt regional update on Friday. Have a great day.